How do you make business problems disappear? Wrap them in bacon. For business owners, marketing execs, and anyone trying to grow your business, pump your profits, and make more while doing less, welcome to Bacon Wrapped Business with Brad Costanzo. Sizzling hot business advice guaranteed to make you fat. Profits? Every week our chefs will serve you proven recipes for ramping up your revenue. Now here's your host, Brad Costanzo.
Hey, welcome back to Bacon Wrapped Business. This is Brad Costanzo, and I'm very excited to be back with you guys. As you know, I took a couple-month hiatus there from publishing some new episodes. I was working on some pretty big deals, but I'm back, and I've got some recent ones that I did with Roland Frazier just the other day, and Matt and Joe from Evergreen Profits. If you're just tuning in to this podcast for the very first time, make sure you go back and listen to a couple of the previous episodes as well. They are guaranteed to rock your world, just like today's episode is going to do that. I am really thrilled to have a guest on the show who really refers to his background or what he's doing right now as kind of a ghost. You cannot find much information, if any, on the web about him at all. He was referred to me by a couple people that I highly respect, former guests on the show, from Mark Anthony Bates and my friend Gene, who I cannot pronounce his last name to save my life. But David, is it Reiss or Reiss? Reiss. David Reiss, who you just heard, is really such a dynamic entrepreneur, consultant, business owner, and thought leader in this space. He's worked his entire career with Fortune 1000 companies and bigger, helping them go from 20 million to 200 million and above that, and really understanding how to think completely differently than most standard consultants and business owners in order to achieve really massive amounts of scale. And I've talked to him a couple times here recently, and I was just really blown away by some of the case studies he shared with me and some of his thought processes. And I asked if he would come on the show, and he graciously said yes. So you guys are getting the opportunity to listen to a real live ghost. We'll talk about it in a second. But David, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm really excited to kind of dig in and find out a little bit more about what's going on.
Well, thank you very much. I didn't realize I was going to be that tall. Thank you. That was a great intro. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and you're right. Like I Googled the heck out of you. I was like, this guy really is hard to find. I can't see anything.
Yeah. I started as a marketing consultant. It's a hard story. I was 13 years old. My best friend's father's company was failing. And I asked him what was wrong, and he told me. And I said, well, did you try this and this and this, which seemed very logical to me, even as a kid.
13.
At 13, yeah, and it saved his company. And by the time I was 17, I had a lot of word of mouth. I was doing things at 13. I'd go to the zoo with a old speed graphic camera and color Polaroid film that I bought for $1 and say, your picture in color for $3. And in a month's time, I did 3,000 of them and made $2 each. And I was 13 years old.
Wow.
So
you've been an entrepreneur for a very long time then. Yeah,
I can't spell it, but I have definitely been it for a very long time. Yes.
Yeah. It's so funny. Just as on a side note, a buddy of mine and his wife just published a book really about the journey of the entrepreneur's wife. And it says that on the title. It's like, and this just happened like a week ago, the journey of the entrepreneur's wife, and the word entrepreneur was misspelled on the cover.
Right.
It was published, and like a real publisher and everything didn't catch it. But we were all laughing like, no entrepreneur can spell entrepreneur. That's like, it's actually a hilarious gaffe. I was like, keep it on there. Don't even fix it. But, sorry to side note. I just thought that was funny because I got the book.
No, it's funny. I try to do some fun things. Even on my iPhone, it says, please forgive the typos. And I put TPYOS for typos, just because, or on a form we just did on one of the companies I'm a partner in, there's always, I am not a robot. And yeah. I put a robot, I not am.
That's awesome. I love that. You got to have a little levity in there. But I want to circle back, man. You said at 13 years old and, through your teens, you've already been a hustler and an entrepreneur and making things happen, probably much more than a lot of your peers. What was the evolution of your career then?
I was always trying to get involved and figure things out. And to me, looking at things, I had answers. It just came to me. People say if I wasn't as successful as I have been, I'd probably be in a room with vulnerable wallpaper. And I don't doubt that. But answers I see things differently. So I started doing consulting. I was a kid and still trying to. And then I got a chance to speak at the Direct Marketing Association. And I did it 2 or 3 years in a row. I don't remember. The first year I had maybe 60 people in the room. And I said, I've got nothing. I've got no slides. I've got no script. I've got no pitch or story. How many of you have not a marketing challenge, but an unsolvable marketing challenge? And hands went up, and I chose 6 people. And I took one at a time and said, you have 2 minutes to explain the problem. I have 5 minutes to solve it. And I did it 6 times. And I would say, this is the best weight loss program you've ever seen, because I'm sweating bullets under here. And, 20, 30 companies would come up and say, how do we hire you? And the next year, I had almost 2,000 people in the room. And so it was a way of launching. And a lot of these companies were very large companies, and they were attracted to the way that I solved problems. So it was really just my brain power, if you will. And
just to interrupt you right there, and I actually really want to thank you for that idea, because I was just booked to give a speech in front of a very large group for EO, entrepreneur organization, in a few months.
Right.
There's about 600 or 700 people there, and I really am not 100% sure what I was going to talk about. But the skill set that you just said is one that I actually have, most likely to a lesser degree than yourself, but I'm really good on the spot. And I love the fact that you said that, because it just gave me a tremendous idea on how to add value without just having to have a scripted speech, which I hate.
And I send the bill where? Tell me which email.
Bacon wrap business. P.O. box.
No. See, I like bacon wrapped bacon business. Exactly. Because that's even fatter.
Double bacon.
Well, it was a restaurant had bacon wrapped pork belly, so I thought that's an amazing. It came with a side of Lipitor, so it was wonderful.
I love it. So you did. And it grew.
Yeah.
People started seeing you as kind of this oracle, like, oh man, this guy's got the answer.
Well, yeah, they liked the way I thought, and so a lot of companies came up to me, and they were significant. I mean, they were Fortune 1000 companies, and they didn't care about track record or who I had worked for. What they wanted was the way I thought, the way I saw things. So they would put me to a little bit of a test, and I started passing these tests and helping them, and all of a sudden, I'm in my 20s, and I'm working at the CEO level of the Fortune 1000. And one CEO tells another. It was the chairman of the board of one automotive company who told the then CEO of another automotive company to call me to solve a problem, which I did. So it was all word of mouth. And then the equity firms who were behind them started taking notes. So I started working with a couple of dozen equity firms who would bring me their deal flow, their portfolios. I would not just solve the problems, but I'd see things in companies that ways to increase valuation. I'm really, really good at that, because there are so many things people don't see. Well, valuation, people say, oh, it's a multiple of EBITDA, but it's not. Forgive me, I don't mean this to be rude, but that's a cop-out from bean counters, accountants who say, oh, well, it's an 8-time multiple. You have $6 million in EBITDA, therefore it's $48 million. But that's not true.
The iceberg, right? It's like it's a rule of thumb of where to start, but it does not determine where you end up.
I had an equity firm once who calls me and says, we've got a reinsurance company that's on the block for $30 million, and 3 large insurance companies are bidding on it. We're missing something. Would you come in? And I said, sure. So I came in, I looked at it, and I thought, oh my goodness, you got to take this thing off the market. Just give me 90 days. And I restructured a few things here and there, and we put it back on the market for $53 million, and the same 3 companies bid on it and bought it. One of them bought it, because you have to know where to look. And I'll give you a very simple example. Yeah. I'm at a dinner party with some friends, and we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And one of the guys there had he was a contractor. He did remodeling of homes, and he wanted to sell his business. He had 9 vans with guys out there, so it was doing very well. And he asked me, what here is my numbers, here's what I do, here's how it works. There wasn't a lot of room there. And he said, what can I do? This is how much I can get for my business. I don't want to give you the number, but it was a reasonable number. And I said, well, there's more you can do. I said, let me give you a saying, a formula. OCD equals higher valuation. And he said, huh? I said, when people ask me what I aspire to be, I'm not, but I would aspire to be proudly OCD, cross every T and dot every I. So I said, did you come here in one of your vans? He said, yes, I did, because I'm doing a job down the block. I said, show me the van. And he opens the van, and it's what you would expect, tools piled up. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you were OCD, what would this van look like? It would be pristine. Everything would be in its place. All the extension cords would be wrapped up and coiled and hung up. And everything would be meticulous. And I said, do that with your 9 vans and let the buyer see that. And you won't have to worry about getting the higher valuation. He wanted to get an extra $1 million on top of what he was asking, and he felt he was top of the market. And I said, now when you do that, ask another $3 million on top of it. And they look at the vans and they go, oh my God, this is amazing. This guy has crossed every T, dot every I. I've never seen anything like it. And he got it.
To that kind of concept that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I imagine if a buyer sees those vans in particular, like these are amazing, the rest of his business must be amazing as well, right? Like it kind of all flows.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Can I share another example of a company that I bought? I went out to look at a data company. Now, anytime you buy a technology company, here's the big secret. Everybody's software code sucks. I'm sorry, that's a technical term, but it sucks because we'll get to the documentation later. We don't have time. We got to get to market. They're rushing to market. It's terrible. So there's a company I was looking at, and it was $5 million, and it legitimately was $5 million. It was worth it. I go in and I bring in sort of a team of forensic programmers, and I say, I want a 200-page spiral-bound book, 3-ring book rather, that shows me why their code sucks. And they do this analysis, and of course their code sucks. And I put it on the table and I say, I'll give you $4 million because it's going to cost me $1 million to fix your code. And the CEO and the investors, there's nothing they can say. You've now found their worst nightmare of a secret, and they know it. Mm-hmm. Because they know it, they can't argue it. Now, here's the reverse of that. If I'm selling a company that's worth $5 million, I'm going to sell it for $7 million. Why? Because I go into the code, and the way I write code is, aside from the programmer's documentation, which means nothing. Everyone says, oh, we're DOD, we do, Department of Defense standards. Again, a technical term, bullpucky. I go in and I have a narrative for every module, because everything is written in a modular fashion. Every module has a module written in English, a narrative of what that module does. It has links to the screenshots. It has a screencast with the end user using it and discussing it. And then there's an audio recording, an MP3, with the end user talking to the developer, the programmer, where the end user goes first and the programmer goes second, because otherwise he'll tune out after he talks. That's in the code. So when they bring their people in to look at the code, they go, oh my God, look at this thing. Yeah, if he did this, I can't even imagine how good everything else is.
Right.
And boom.
Sometimes you get little things that, it can be probably just a nightmare to get it all together. But if you can increase or decrease the valuation in the 7 figures, sometimes even more, by doing that, it's a step that most people aren't willing to take, right? Well,
yeah. And where do you look? I'll share some of the secrets if you don't mind me sharing it with your audience.
Oh, we hate
this. Yeah, that's what I thought. On this reinsurance company from 30 to 53, what I did was I said, okay, what's the persistency? How long do accounts usually stay on? Okay, they stay on 31 months. This company, they were on 74 months. Do you know what an incredible profit that is to not have to go out and spend the cost of acquisition for new customers and to not have that kind of sales force because they stay on? How many admin people does it take to service every 100 clients? They were running at 40% of industry average. 4 people for every 10 that the industry had to service them, which meant they were incredibly efficient. So I go down those routes, and I found a dozen things that were there. Now, then you get into loss carry forwards and credits and a lot of financial things as well. But when you put the totality of the package together, we were able to take it from 30 to 53, which is, incredible.
Yeah. I mean, unless you don't like those extra taxes you have to pay on all that extra money you make.
Yeah, capital gains besides,
Exactly. So I'd love to dive into just a handful more of examples about the way that you think differently versus, I guess, conventional business and marketing wisdom. From some of the things that maybe you impressed the Fortune 500 CEOs from the early days in your 20s to some of the ways that you're doing now. Like, how's the way most people think, and then what are some of the twists that you bring to the table?
Well, I look in different places. I don't look at things head on. That's the easy way. I look at things from inside out, up, down, backwards. There's always a back door, and I take contrary views. I can sort of shotgun a few of these to you. A battery technology company came to me. I didn't go with them. I didn't have the bandwidth, but they were having a struggle. They were very high-end battery tech for large corporations, and they decided to create their own home battery to compete with Tesla. And only their battery was much better. Now, I didn't use their battery. I just went by the specs they sent me. And they had brought in 5 different marketing consulting companies, and they said, we need a comparison chart, but it has to be disruptive. So they called me because the Silicon Valley investment banking firm had suggested they give me a call. And I said, well, my guess is that they just gave you a comparison chart and said, this is how you be disruptive, show that you're better. He said, yes. I said, well, that only puts you firmly in position number 2. And the longer you do that, the more you're going to smell like number 2. And that's not what you want. I said, what you have to do is use the comparison chart as a support, not as a main message. And he didn't understand. Then he said, give me an example. I said, you have to take a strategy. So it's about spin and positioning. So let me digress for 1 second and give you an example. It's all about what's in it for me. You could want to save the gay black whales for Jesus, but it's about you and your family first. So a priest goes up to a bishop and says, Your Eminence, do you mind if I smoke while I pray? He says, of course I mind. Praying is a sacrament. I refuse to allow you to defile it by smoking. I forbid it. Okay. 2 weeks later, a new priest gets off the bus in the seminary and says, Your Eminence, do you mind if I pray while I smoke? Oh, go right ahead. So it's about your motivation. So in this case, they wanted to go up against Tesla home batteries. So I said, yes, put up the comparison chart. But at the top of the ad, you say, we are committed to helping Tesla raise the bar on home batteries. Now show your comparison chart with a bar over Tesla and a higher bar over you. And below it say, come on, Tesla, we know you can do it. And if you need our help, please feel free to call.
All right, that is pretty amazing. I love that.
Now you're in position 1.
Yeah.
And so the CEO said, they were all laughing and said, what if they raise the bar? I said, I hope they do. Because the next ad is, congratulations, Tesla. We knew you could do it. Unfortunately, we raised our bar as well, so you still have a ways to go. Again, give us a call if we can help.
That's so great because Tesla is such a strong brand with a lot of emotional appeal to most of the most of the country because of who Elon is and what he represents and all the publicity they get without any marketing. And I love how you used it, just a psychological tactic to kind of just have the client put themselves above even because in order to do that you have to be you're assuming a superior frame as it is. There's a lot of cool psychological things there. I love that.
Well, and I'll give you the biggest secret about marketing. This is what no one will tell you, and I'm glad that I share it all the time. Marketing is psychology. If you want to be a marketer, study psychology. Read all the social psychology books, Gladwell, Early, all of them. Read those. Yeah. Oh, especially Cialdini. I mean, Persuasion and Persuasion are fabulous books. And read The Elements of Power. Robert Greene. Understand read The Game by
Neil Strauss.
I forgot his name. Yeah, Neil Strauss. Read things that show how people respond. That's what it's about. One of the largest furniture chains in the country had come to me, and they were making their own sleeper sofa.
Okay.
And they couldn't give it away. It wasn't a brand name, and it was seen by everyone who came in as sort of a sloppy, attempt at making it something. It was a second-class citizen. And so they asked me what to do, and I said, show me the display, and there were like 15 sleeper sofas at all their stores. And I said, okay, go back 2 rows, go over 3, put it there. Now, that big red sold tag that goes on an item that's sold? Put that on the couch. They couldn't keep them in stock.
Everybody wants what they can.
Well, it had already given people permission to buy it because someone else had bought it. It's about the psychology. Many years ago, late 70s, I'm dating myself. I was a zygote at the time. A friend of mine built townhouses in Southern California, in the valley, in San Fernando Valley. And he had, I don't remember if it was 20 or 24, and he was selling them for $349, which was high then. It was like really high end, late 70s, early 80s, and he could not sell them. He just couldn't move them. And he came to me and said, what do we do? And I said, I don't know what you do. I know I have no problem. I have no money invested in this. But I said, here's what you do. Raise the price to $395. He said, are you crazy? He said, I'm at $350 and I'll go down to $275. I said, raise the price to $395 and say, if you buy within the next 60 days, you can choose either a completely refurbished concours condition Ford Mustang, coupe or convertible, or a Camaro in the driveway. 69 Camaro, 67 Mustang. Classic refurbished. Within 30 days, every one of them were sold. The cars cost them $20,000 each.
Yeah. And you look at a comparison to like another kind of a marketing campaign or something else, something like this drives directly into the desires of the consumer. And they're like, I just want that so badly.
It has to do with relative value.
Yeah.
And what value people put on it. We used to run contests and we'd say, the winner gets 2 round-the-world airline tickets. Well, if you go up to 10 people and you say, how much do you think it costs to get an unlimited stop round-the-world airline ticket that's good for a year? So you can go around the world, 2 of you. People say, I don't know, $100,000 each, $50,000 each. They're $2,500 each. But the perception, or I would say the winner has their mortgage based on national average, their mortgage or rent paid for a year. That's $746 at the time we ran it. I think it's 9 something now. Or we'll pay your income tax based on national average. It was like $14,000 and tax on top of tax, so maybe 20. But the perception is over the top.
Yeah.
And you had asked me before we started this about techniques for the small entrepreneur, the startup guy. I had I'll give you 2 very quick stories about competing, about competition. Competition is a wonderful thing if you know how to use it. Guy comes to me, and I don't remember where I met him. I think it was just through a friend. And his family sold carpets, rugs, art carpets, and they wanted to get online, and there were already a few 800-pound gorillas selling carpets online who had all the traffic. And he said, what do I do? I said, I want you to form 5 online companies. I want 5 different websites, 5 different names, colors, phone numbers, as if you are 5 completely different companies. And again, he's sort of looking at me and saying, what are you, 40 short in a jacket, ties behind you in the back, you know? And he said, why? I said, because on the first one, you're going to say, we will not be undersold by, and name number 2. And on number 2, say, we will not be undersold by, and name number 3. And on 3, name 4, 4, name 5, 5, name 1. Now start generating traffic to it. Well, it was exponential. And eventually he bought out the other guys, the big 800-pound gorillas who had lost enough weight to be, 80-pound gorillas and or 60-pound monkeys. And he bought them out because he took over.
So that's great. So I want to just kind of recap, make sure I understand that. So his product that he sold was like really nice carpets, et cetera, right?
Yeah, so they were art carpets. Everyone sold the same things. So basically, it was the same catalog.
Yeah.
Right.
So he created these other ones, which gave him this, at least the illusion of a big imprint and a big, what do you call it?
Well, it gave him a chain where 1 became 5. You got so much traffic because whoever was on 1 went to 2. Whoever was on 2 and where it said
I won't be on out. You're giving them like free exposure, right?
So if I went to site number 2 and it says I'm not going to be undersold by 3, I go, well, let me see what 3's prices are. So one piece of traffic, one person going to the first website ends up going to 5. So basically, it was getting 5 times the value of the traffic for every one he got. He got 5 different hits on 5 different sites.
And if they buy from any of them, it's all his.
Okay, game over. Yeah, game over. Many, many, many years ago, I did an infomercial that was a little different. It was early 90s, and computers were becoming all the rage. The internet was really in its infancy, and there were some people, I think it was called Net Zero, offering free internet access. Yeah, and Encyclopedia Britannica had just come out on DVD or CD rather. And so I got on, and I was king of sort of the discount clubs, travel clubs, health clubs, doing this for all the banks and insurance companies. And I provided all the benefits and some of the marketing. And so I said, 1,000 free software programs when you take a 30-day trial membership in our discount club, our discount shopping club. And then it was, of course, but wait, there's more. If you call in the next 10 minutes, we'll give you free internet. And for the first 500 callers, you get the entire Encyclopedia Britannica on CD, a $500 value, absolutely free. It was September. They were going to come out with their next year, and I bought their entire stock for $1 each.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what I knew was everyone was going to copy this. They weren't going to, I went through, got all the contracts and got signed agreements with all the programmers. They didn't care. Other people would just copy it. How many ab flexes were there? So what I did was I had bought all the A time meaning the prime time. At that time, I bought all the commercial time during Star Trek and all the places where people who had computers would be. And I had quietly bought the B time. So I created a second infomercial with a different name, different announcer, different product, design, everything, but the same offer. And I'd get on, and just about 3 weeks later, when I figured everyone was ready to start copying me and launching, I launched my own competition to compete against myself and say, don't buy from them. We were the original. They took our idea and went with it. We're the ones with the contracts with the programmers. And so I started an online battle, an on TV battle between the two. And I'd get letters from people saying, I bought from you because I know you were really the first one. And, it became this cult, if you will. And we pinned the needle. I mean, we dominated this whole genre. And then, of course, everybody started offering free product if you take a trial membership.
That's great. I've heard of that concept many times, which is start your own competition and start a company out there. I have not yet talked to anybody who has actually done that. And I love that story because as I said, I've always been fascinated by it and I kind of get it conceptually, but I love the fact that you actually did it. That's so great.
I teach people how to do it all the time. Here's one for digital marketers because we're working in the digital space. How do you live in an Amazon world? How many times have you seen a product that's on Amazon and it starts to scale?
Yep.
And it's moving up? And what happens? All of a sudden you lose 80% of your business. And what do you know? Amazon has the exact same product. And because they own the customers and the traffic, they're diverting everybody to their product.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
If I'm a marketing consultant, I say kudos to Amazon. I have to. It's brilliant. But if I'm the guy who made that formula, I'm not happy. So do you think there's a little guy with glasses and a bald head sitting there waiting for a certain number to hit? No, it's an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So I say to people on Amazon, take your product and make 5 of them and start scaling all 5. You'll never get as high as you would with one single one, but the height you get is times 5, and you stay under their algorithm, and you end up making more money than if you had one that scaled all the way up. And certainly you get to be on their radar.
And you just own more real estate, right? You may have 5 listings on one page as opposed to one. And you can take that scattershot approach. I love that. That's it. Cause I know that's a very real issue for a lot of Amazon sellers out right now. There was actually there was a great article. You familiar with The Onion? The kind of satire. I'm just looking for it right here. There was a funny article that just says, it's not written by Jeff Bezos, but it supposedly is. And the title is, "My advice to anyone starting a business is to remember that someday I will crush you." And then the article's hilarious. He gives like great entrepreneurial advice, and he's like, "And this will serve you up until the time we come and take your entire market with one pen stroke."
Well, perspective is interesting. I've traveled a lot, and I was in Madrid, and I went to a bullfight because I wanted the psychological and cultural experience of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the matadors are, they're vicious, and they're really hurting the bull, and you're saying, "Oh my God, this is terrible." Then the bull gets angry and rams the matador, and you go, "Wait a minute, that's not right." Go get him. So it's how it changes on a dime. Well, here's how I look at Amazon. I'm a big Amazon fan. I have tremendous respect for Jeff Bezos. I think the man is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because if I were a marketer doing what he does, I would do exactly the same thing. And there's not one person, I believe, listening to this today who wouldn't want to be Jeff Bezos if they could and do the same things. The problem is everyone who's not Jeff Bezos is at a different position saying he's hurting me.
Unless you're a consumer. Consumers love him, investors love him, and the only people who doesn't love him are small business who are trying to compete with him.
But so if you're a small business, don't be angry. Learn from him. Look at what he does. He's a wonderful strategist. People say he bought Whole Foods. Well, if you dig deeper and you look into the future, and we're going to talk about the future in just a few minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All those Whole Foods, originally he bought half of the Radio Shacks that went out.
Yeah. He's
buying standalone locations. He's not buying something that's in a high rise. Well, what do you think the flat roof of a Whole Foods can be used for? I mean, talk about a staging for drones in the city. So there are strategies. People say to me, I would say to people, in 10, 15 years, 15 for sure, there won't be any franchise car dealers. The OEMs have been trying to get rid of them for years. They tried in the recession. Chrysler, shut them all down. They all had to come back. The franchise laws are so strict. But the way cars will be sold, if they're sold at all, and they actually won't be, would be in shopping malls because electric cars are an inevitability.
Kind of the way Tesla does theirs, right? You go by a Tesla dealership next to the limit.
Right. But if you think about it, a dealer makes 5 times more in the service department. I've worked in like 30 industries, so I'm a wealth of useless information.
I wouldn't call it
they
useless.
Make 5 you haven't spoken to my wife, so anyway. They make 5 times more in the service department than they do in sales, and there won't be anything to service. So that goes away. So the dealers, in their inevitable wisdom, say, I'll make it up on sales and F&I, finance and insurance.
Yep.
Well, you're not going to buy a lot of service contracts on a car where the whole motor costs, $500 or $800 to replace. So there's not a reason to buy extended warranties on all these things. And because there's no barrier to entry to electric cars, the Chinese and the Indians are going to come in, and the Eastern Europeans are going to come in. So it becomes a commodity. So how can the dealers survive? Now, that being said, all the parts companies, the support companies for the dealers, all of that goes away. That's going to have a big hit on the economy. Cars are going to be autonomous. Yes, we know that. But do you think the cities are going to just say to Uber and Lyft, hey, knock yourselves out? Well, the cities are losing parking revenue from meters, no tickets. They still have to maintain the roads and the streets, maybe not traffic lights anymore. So where's that going to go? You have to start asking questions about where we're going to know how to frame your business within it. And so that's important. I'm sorry.
I love that. And I think it does dovetail perfectly into a concept that you and I discussed offline the other day, which is time travel.
Yeah, this is where people really take my measurements for a white jacket that ties in the back. I teach time travel, and I do this in my mastermind group. I've done it to corporations. I've trained multiple departments. Time is a construct created by our minds to help us create mile markers, if you will, and navigate through our lifespan on Earth. That's really what it is. Mm-hmm. It gives us relationships. It gives us analogies, points of reference. But the way that we're wired is that we can only answer present and past tense questions. So let me propose something. Every project, we're going to call a project Project X. You decide you're going to do something, and we're calling it Project X. So, Brad, you have 3 sides to Project X. The Project X you plan to do, the Project X you actually launch and do, and that same Project X a year later you look back on with hindsight and wish to God you had done. Mm-hmm. Which is the best of those 3? Hindsight, always. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could see the future? Well, if we could, we'd all be living at the beach driving Aston Martins. So that's not viable. Mm-hmm. But what if you could go into the future? What if you could, and I'm not talking about an H.G. Wells time machine. I'm talking about using certain, again, this is the white jacket and foam rubber wallpaper conversation, but I've created techniques. I teach them. It takes about 45 minutes to go through the process. It takes about an hour and a half to teach them, where I can take you ahead into the future, 30 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I can actually get you to a point where if I asked you what year it is, you're going to say 2023, and you will believe it. You can actually sit there believing you are in 2023. And I've perfected a way to do this. Once you're there, I don't need to worry about your inability to see the future, because I'm going to ask you past tense questions about the project you launched 5 years earlier in 2018.
Okay.
What happened when you launched? What did you learn? What was the response? What was the reaction? What did your customers think? What did your suppliers do? Were there regulatory issues? What did your competition do? I start asking questions through different lenses. One of the most important lenses I use is, what did the critics say? And now you look back and you find all the holes in your product, because now you have to face reality. Because if I ask you what the critics say, you're going to have to look at it through their eyes. I'll digress for a second. When I would interview someone, I'd say, what are your weaknesses? And they'd go, oh, well, I just work too hard. I never know when to stop. I push too far. Employers are going, no, yes. And it's all crap.
Right. What
I say is, when I call your references, and I will, and I ask them what they consider to be your weaknesses, what are they going to tell me? Well, now they're backpedaling and they can do some damage control. So they're very open about what their real weaknesses are, because they know I'm going to find out, and they want to do damage control. So here's the same thing. If I say, what did the critics say? So a Silicon Valley software company, very prominent software company, calls me, and they're coming out with a new product, really cutting edge at the time. And I look at it, and I do this exercise in my mind all the time with everything. And I think about what's missing, and I say, okay, I do this exercise with them, and I say, show me your version 2 and your version 3 list of what you want to put in. And they do. And I bring them through this exercise, and I take them 5 years in the future, and I look back and I ask them all these questions, and we whiteboard all the answers, and then I get to, what did the critics say? Did they give you 5 stars, or how many stars did they give you, and what did they say you were missing? And when I ask that question, they start filling in all the holes. What do you know? A lot of those holes were in version 2 and 3, which in the present day, you say, we'll put it in later. We can't do it now. And I show them how, for the little bit of extra time, and this was the difference between launching in March or launching January 1 or April 1, they basically came out with version 3. Because once they were committed to taking version 2 and 3 and blending it into their production schedule, their programming schedule, it didn't take much longer. Well, they launched to 5-star reviews. And that particular software at that time period was dominated the market. So you can use this.
Yeah, you know what I love about this, just psychologically, the effect is that and at least what I'm hearing and what I kind of believe, that putting yourself in the future and looking back, it almost disassociates you from, because if I'm thinking right now, what could go wrong in the future, I'm still so involved in the present and so invested in it. It's really kind of hard to zoom out. But if you imagine that it's already done, you're a little dissociated from it. And I think it's a lot easier then to kind of view it with an impartial, like, okay, I'm looking back, I can see how these things went, because it's not what's out in front of you, it's behind you, and there's less emotional attachment to all the potential negatives. I don't know if that's part of the psychology of what makes it work, but I can kind of see it as one of the reasons why it would be effective.
It's freeing, because if you are in the present trying to look for the future, 1, we're not wired that way, and 2, it's a struggle. Yeah. If I take those barriers away and free your mind so that you believe it's the future and you're looking back, it's easy. It's a piece of cake. You remember things from 10 years ago and 10 days ago, and in your mind, they're the same.
Yeah.
They happened at the same moment. So once you understand, and I teach people how to pin themselves. When I say pin, you can jump to 30, 90 days, a year, 2 years. You can just jump to a certain pin in a map and stay there and live there.
Well, this works also perfectly with one of my favorite strategies I learned years ago, and I employ it both in my life and in my with my clients and partners. But there was a strategy that Walt Disney used to do where, and you may be familiar with this or maybe not, but they used to say you never knew which Walt was going to walk into the office. Was it going to be the dreamer, the doer, or the critic? And he was very deliberate, I think to the point where he had 3 different offices as well, when they were imagining a new movie or ride or project. It would be the dreamer office, where they only allowed to come up with what is possible, but not plan it or critique it. And then there was another office where the only thing they could do is storyboard or plan what it is, but not dream it or not critique it. But then finally, that third room, which is the critics room, that's where everybody's job is just to sit there and think about, okay, we're not here to add more stuff to this, and we're not to plan it. We're here to think about, what did we miss? What are we missing out? What are the problems or the hurdles that we weren't thinking about before that could derail this whole thing? And I've always loved this framework of giving each dreamer, doer, and critic their kind of time to have their say. But then you've just taken that concept to the next level of saying, yeah, well, especially if you are critiquing it or anything, do it from kind of this time travel, futuristic perception, because I can see how that would make it so much more powerful and effective in doing so. But that's really interesting how your strategy there aligns perfectly with something that I kind of do a little bit of as well. I love that.
Well, it's the most powerful technique people have told me they've ever used. It's life-changing and changing their business. There's a lot of things that will affect things. Cognitive bias is and emotional attachment are just the death knell to business. They destroy more businesses. Ego and bias are the things that kill more businesses. And I show people how to eliminate them, how to step aside from them and away from them, because they'll kill you. Your predetermined beliefs or your emotional attachment to something is irrational.
That happened to me about 1.5 years ago. I started an e-commerce brand and fell in love with the brand and the idea. And I knew at the time that I was putting blinders on myself because I was so emotionally attached. And I thought, I can will this to work. And
Yeah.
when it got to the point of like maybe about 9 months to a year in, I started going, man, I really broke all of the cardinal rules of planning this stuff out. And I ignored so many things. I've just got to shut it down and lose a bunch of money because I didn't.
And yet you would do that again. You would,
Yeah.
because if people can't help themselves. I liken it to dead horses. You can't beat a dead horse, you know. And so I say, okay, where are the dead horses here? What am I holding on to? And I start questioning how other people would take it on. Here, you know, examples of things. If you came in to a company as a new CEO, what would you do differently than that company does? So given that question, because you'd have your own plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were taken out of your company today, Brad, and a new CEO came in, what would he do that you're not? What would he see that you don't? What direction would he take it? And if you can answer that question, you've opened your eyes to new possibilities.
Right. Simply by shifting the perception around, frees you up and probably opens up just for a million different ideas. I love that.
I remember when the government, when George W. bailed out the car industry and said, cash for clunkers.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're going to do whatever it is, $30 billion, $3 billion. I don't remember what the number is. I said, well, why don't you just write a check to Toyota? Because that's all you're going to do. You just bailed out the American automotive industry, not Ford, but Chrysler and GM. You're going to give people $4,500 extra cash when they trade in their cars. And all you're doing is feeding Toyota, Nissan, and Honda because that's where they're going. Why don't you apply some logic and say, if you buy a U.S. brand car, Ford, Chrysler, GM, we give you $4,500. If you buy a foreign make car made in America, Toyota, Nissan, Honda that are made here, you get $2,500, and anything else you get zero.
Right.
Everybody would have bought a Ford, Chrysler, or GM car to get their $4,500. Car industry problems gone. But there's you know, nobody takes that next step. They look at something for what's put on the table and they don't question it. My advice to your listeners is question everything and keep questioning. If you don't ask why at least 5 times in a row for everything, you're not going deep enough. Why are you doing this? Okay, that's why. Well, why did you do that? Okay, that's why I did that. Well, tell me why you felt that was important. You got to go deep and not just why, but, you know, who, what, why, when, where, and how. The more you question, the more things occur to you. When you take things for granted or make assumptions, then you get into cognitive bias, emotional attachment, willing something to happen that won't, and you do it over and over. People repeat their patterns, and I show them how to break that. And one other thing I wanted to say, humor is one of the greatest tools in marketing. People don't use it. You know, I mentioned that, you know, I did the thing of, you know, not a robot, I am kind of thing. But even emails that I send out, I recently took over as CEO of a multinational software company. It's a marketing intelligence platform. It's marketing automation on steroids. Mm-hmm. It has an artificial intelligence base foundation to it, and it does everything. I mean, you don't need to buy any other software. If you use something like one of my companies, we use Infusionsoft and probably 40 other programs. With this, everything is baked in. Nice. And you can scale. You know, when we successfully scale a product, it's addictive. Well, we coined the term and trademarked it called digital crack. Digital crack is successfully scaling.
I actually saw that on the website, and I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, well, people are already calling saying, oh, would you come and speak about digital crack? I'm getting a kick out of it. But, you know, how you use humor, I don't want to blow my own horn here for a second, but we went to a trade show. We did a trade show, and we got leads, and I was just coming on the company at the time, and they were sending out follow-up emails that were mind-numbing. I mean, thank you for stopping by our booth. We're so impressed with what you had to say, and we want to meet you, and we want to have your children, and, you know, all of this. And can I send you a puppy? You know, that kind of stuff. It was the same thing you've seen all the time. And it was around Christmas time. And I said, no, you gotta step out of the mold. And so I wrote an email. It took me like 15 minutes that was light for the holiday, and we pinned the needle on response. And people still call and say, I'll never forget that email you sent. Do something that's memorable. Do something that sticks out, that people will remember, that people will take notice of, that people can enjoy. I try to put a little bit of humor into things where I can. I mean, I could send you the email if you want. It's fun. It's light and entertaining.
Well, that's one of the reasons that, people ask me, why do you create, a show called Bacon Wrapped Business? And I was like, because it actually introduced, it's not the Brad Costanzo show, which bored me. And creating something with a little bit of fun and humor, it almost gave me permission to even have a little bit more fun with it and create a more entertaining vibe. So I had that in my mind precisely when I named this show. And
exactly.
So, because it does make people, we're in an entertainment society, right? Especially this country, entertainment is our biggest export.
Can I offer something? If your audience won't think, oh my God, he's an egotistical asshole, which they might think anyway. Can I share this email with you? Because I think that
Absolutely.
They might get a kick out of what it does, and if your audience can start to do things like this, don't go overboard. Maybe have a friend or someone who's a writer help you. But when you touch people and engage them, before I read it, I'm going to give you an example of something. How many times have you gotten an email and you say, I don't want this, and you hit unsubscribe? What happens when you hit unsubscribe, Brad? It says, thanks for being, sorry to miss you, sorry to lose you, right?
Yep.
That's it. I don't do that. What I do is I realize, wait a minute, it cost me a lot of money to get that person's email and have them subscribe, and now I'm losing them. And I don't accept that. So when it hits unsubscribe, it goes to a page, and then there's 4 blocks, rectangular blocks. The first one is in 16-point type, and it says, the little checkbox, and it says, I'm under a lot of pressure recently, so I'd like to cut back to just once a week. Okay. The next box has 12-point type, and it says, my significant other tells me I cannot read more than 2 of these emails a month. Please change my subscription. The third box has 10-point type, and it says, my therapist says once a month is all that I can handle, or he's going to charge me more. And the last one is in 8-point type, and it says, there is nothing I can say or do that can keep me on this list. I've taken counsel. I've talked to religious leaders. I have spoken with family and friends. I must unsubscribe. Parenthesis, wink, wink. Why don't you check back with me in 6 months just to see how I'm doing? And that's the last box in small print. And so people get engaged. It's fun. It's engaging. Well, in many cases, I can't go into the specific ones, we hold about 40% of them stay with us.
Yeah.
40% of the people who are ready to unsubscribe, and guess how engaged they are, and guess how much they buy and re-engage with the whole company. And nobody thinks about this. We do the same thing with save programs. When you're on a continuity program and you leave, people go, oh, okay. Well, no, we, in our case with the software, we use AI, and we make them an offer they can't refuse. I use animation, I use fun, I use gags, I use all kinds of things that get them to laugh.
Yeah, and it's huge, because when you think of also just with the unsubscribe mentality, sometimes, and we've all done that, sometimes we're just in a bad mood and we get an email from something we normally like, but it's just off, and we're like, screw it, I don't need this anymore, I'm going to unsubscribe. But you don't necessarily mean that. And
no, because you're busy, and it's, I get a lot of newsletters, and so there's this one that I really like because it's what's new in technology, and I read it all the time. But there are days that I just delete it. I go, I'm too busy. I can't even think about this today. But others will say, no, I'm just going to unsubscribe. I've had enough of this. We all do that. I'll share this email that I wrote, again, not to show off, but to hopefully show people what they can do. So it was Christmas time. The company is called Touch CR. That's the name of our company. It's the marketing intelligence software, and we can do data pins, and it's micro-targeting. We've even achieved 98% inbox placement, not deliverability, but inbox placement. It's amazing what we do. And so this was the third in a sequence of emails, and it was sent out 3 or 4 days before Christmas. The subject line is Santa Claus takes Christmas in stride, and it was dear so-and-so. That's right, Santa is chilling for Christmas. Thanks to Touch CR, Santa not only knows who's been naughty and nice, but just how naughty and just how nice. He knows when you are sleeping, he knows when you're awake, and thanks to more than 700 data points that can be appended in real time, Santa knows exactly what you want for Christmas. Parenthesis, that's right, thanks to Touch CR, you won't get an ugly sweater this year. Can you say Aston Martin? Wouldn't you like to be Santa Claus to your customers, knowing what they really want and then selling it to them? Well, you're in luck. Because Santa's work is done, he has the time to tell you exactly how Touch CR can help you target your customers, just like he did. After all, don't you want to deliver the right product to the right customer, just like Santa? Parenthesis, if not, we know a warehouse where you can buy a lot of ugly sweaters. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and Touch CR was there with data points, tracking, and intelligence software. The customers were filled with food from the market, while messaging and emails never failed to hit their target. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, because your competition didn't use Touch CR, so their presence didn't matter. To schedule a one-on-one with Santa, click the link below. You know, the response to this day, we get people who refer back to it and say, you know, I found you because of that email, or I responded because of the email. I've never forgotten that. You know, we use it as a template in our company now. It engages. Don't be afraid to take a chance.
Yeah. No,
How many times do you split test? And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on what you're saying, but you split test, you throw out lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are bored these days. Like, we are all going through life.
I'm sorry. Did you say something? What?
But most people are bored. Most people are going through life just in this zombie-like haze, and sometimes you got to shake it out of them. And oftentimes it's a little bit of humor or levity or creativity can make the biggest difference in the world from being this stodgy, just e-commerce brand.
Yeah, I'm going to use a different word. I don't think people are bored. I think they're overloaded. I think that there's so many messages and so many people, companies vying for their attention. It's not that they're bored. It's that they're desensitized a little bit. They're numb, I think. And so to break through the numbness, because I think people generally like their lives and what they're doing. I'd like to believe that. But so boredom wouldn't be it. It's just overloaded and numb. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, we try to break the mold.
Grabbing somebody's attention, being a little bit different is really key these days, because
I saw a billboard in Dallas. It was amazing. I mean, I was slowing down driving. It said, "Your wife is hot." And I thought, wow, okay, that's a hell of a billboard. You know, and it was for an air conditioning company, and we could cool her off, you know, that kind of thing. I thought, that's wonderful. Things that are so clever. Taco Bell, think outside the bun. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. A friend of mine did an ad for a photo lab way back in the day. It says, "We keep our best people in the dark." I mean, you know, you can have some fun with things.
You know, it just hit me. I don't know if you guys actually know each other, but we've got a lot of mutual friends, and he's down there in Austin. Are you familiar? Do you know Roy Williams?
No, I don't.
So there's you think a lot like him, and especially with your story. So Roy owns a company called the Wizard Academy, and he's great.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yes, I have. I have heard of it. I don't know him, but
I think you and Roy would probably get along swimmingly well. But just because of a lot of your approach to the different angles and the different stories and different ways to stand out in the minds of your consumer really are, like you mentioned in the beginning, they are unique. It's not the same straight line approach that most people end up taking. David, I want to move to kind of some of the big stuff, or the things that are taking most of your time these days. Like, what are some of the projects? You mentioned that you made you the CEO of this Touch CR, and there's probably a bunch of other things you're working on. Is there anything else you want to tell us to give us a window into your world? What it looks like?
Well, I mean, it changes all the time. I always own 4 or 5 companies. I'm always consulting for another 4 or 5. I'm sort of up there in what I charge to consult. but I own a corporate training company. We do online training for corporate employees on a very, very big scale. I do some reinsurance work. I have a few products that I do digital marketing on that are kind of fun and a little bit different. So yeah, I'm always involved in a lot of different things. I only take things that are different, unique, disruptive, or considered impossible. A large insurance company came to me and said, we want you to help us build a whole new line of insurance brokerages. And my response, although it wasn't my out loud voice, I said, just shoot me in the head now. I mean, I couldn't do that if my life depended on it. And they backed up a truck of money. And I just said, there's no way. It's not me. I can't do something like that. But give me something that I can do disruptively, that I can just pin the needle and break records. And no one will know I did it. But I'll share something with you that, I do a lot of philanthropy. And I've come up with ways to provide jobs for veterans and help people on medical lists. And I'm a big supporter of the military. I'm a very passionate American and love this country. And I'm very eternally grateful for men and women who put their lives on the line for our way of life. And, so I do, I for 5 years, I hosted the military ball VIP reception at my house in Dallas, and we'd have 200 or 300 people come, and, it's a big fundraising event the next night. So the VIPs would come, it's why I do the mastermind. It's not, people do masterminds because that's their living. It's not for me. It started out as a burden because I'm so incredibly busy, but I was challenged to do it, to give back and to teach people what to do. One of the companies who came to it, because the person who challenged me to do this said, you're going to change lives in companies. Well, one company was stuck at $9 million, couldn't get out of his own way. We got him unstuck, and he's going to shoot up to 30 million. 2 other people had startups. They couldn't figure it out. And now they've got all the answers, and they're going. And the more questions they have, the more answers they know how to get. So it's been incredibly emotionally fulfilling to do this, and a bit of fun too. I don't have guest speakers. It's me. I mean, we do some roundtables, we do some hot seats where everybody gets 15 minutes of fame and we solve their problems. But
who are some of the type of people that you think would be a really good fit for your and by the way, we'll go ahead and give the URL now if people are interested in the Marketing Mastery, or wait, is it
group, the Marketing Mastery Group, or there's a shorter version, the marketingmg.com.
Yeah, either one. And I'll put those in the show notes and people can check them out. But so yeah, what are the ideal types of people? Are they doing a certain amount of business? Is there industries that are better than others, or?
I have a very interesting, if you go to the site and you look at some of the testimonials, the one thing that everyone says is they couldn't believe the quality of the people. I keep it small. I keep it to 30, 32, no more. I'm not into doing 100, 200 people. That's not what I do. I want to keep it small and intimate so it's effective. I turned down 11 people because they didn't have anything to offer. I want people who it's not that everyone has to offer, because some people just have a need, but I'm looking for smart people. I'm looking for people who are passionate about what they do, who want to learn and improve, and who have perspectives to share and aren't afraid to share them. Now, I have the head of a very prestigious boutique investment banking firm. I have the CEO of a chain of clinics. I have some of the top digital marketers in the country are coming as well, because digital marketing is so important. I have a dear friend of mine who's there. He's a underachiever. He's a doctor and a lawyer and a concert violinist and a championship figure skater and a professional magician.
Sounds like a slacker.
Yeah, he is so lazy, but he's also one of the single most brilliant people you'll ever meet. And his perspective on everything is so unique. And that's what I look for too. Well, our mutual friend Gene was there, and Gene is a consultant to large companies, and he's been around the block a few times, has a couple of T-shirts to prove it. And the first day it was, Gene, what do you think? He says, oh, it's interesting. And the second day it was like, oh my God, you just knocked my socks off with this thing. And so everybody gets something. And so that's what I'm looking for. A lot of these people own companies. Most of them own companies, and a few are starting entrepreneurs who need a jump start, and others are running very, very high quality companies doing, $15 to $40 million a year. So it's all over the board. One woman came and she's a small startup. I mean, really, working out of her garage kind of startup, and she was a little intimidated. And I said to her, I said, you're here, you earned your seat at the table. You're here because you are scary smart. You're one of the smartest people in this room. You have nothing to be intimidated about. Just because you haven't achieved what you've chosen to do now, you've been very successful in other things. And she let go of it, and she was a rock star. And she came out of her shell and participated and got feedback, and people made connections, and they're working together and doing deals. And I'm so proud of what the people are accomplishing. It's really it's humbling. It really is. And I never thought I would.
What, 4 times a year?
I do it 4 times a year. The next one is April 26 and 27 in Dallas.
Yeah, today's April 4th is the time we're recording this. Coming up. And people, if they want to go, they can go to the marketingmasterygroup.com, and it looks like
they can fill out an application, and then I'll interview them, and they can interview me, and make sure they're comfortable. I want people who want to learn, who are willing to open their minds up to new possibilities and new ways, who genuinely want to take their companies to the next level and get out of neutral. That's the criteria. I had some people who were in the oil and gas industry, whom I've known for years from consulting, and they said, oh, we want to be there. I said, why? You can offer nothing to entrepreneurs, to existing businesses. You are in a niche that doesn't translate. And I turned them down and a few others. I had some people who I felt would be disruptive, even though they were successful. They were missing a few dots on their dice, and I didn't want that kind of disruption. So 11 people were turned down, but we had 30 people there. And I'm sort of trying to run 2 groups of 30, and that's it. I won't go more than that, but that way I can intermix them. So there's always sort of fresh blood, if you will, and new connections to be made. And I have to admit, it's exhausting. I host a dinner at my house in Dallas the night between the 2 sessions. It is exhausting. And I tell people, if you want laser lights and fancy pyrotechnics, go see Tony Robbins. But if you want to roll up your sleeves and push and have your brain explode, have your head explode, and walk out 2 days later more mentally exhausted and excited than you've ever been in your entire life, begging for a Valium or Thorazine or a vodka drip, then this is the place to go. Because this is a roll-up-your-sleeves, high-intensity session. I don't have guest speakers.
Right.
I spend the morning, it's me, one topic after another, and I move fast. People take 20 pages of notes, but it's all on video, so they can watch it again and again. And then we do 2 one-hour sessions of 5 different roundtables. So it's 10 hours of roundtable, even though everyone can go to only 2 of them. We record them all, so they're online. And then we do 2 hours of hot seat. Every 15 minutes, there's a new challenge. Someone in the group has a problem, a challenge, a stumbling block. We ask a few questions. I pick out some tools that we're going to use to do it, psychological tools or techniques. And then we go around the room, and everybody gets into the frame of mind of solving the problems, and I guide them and tweak everything a little bit. And we do that 8 times. And so we repeat the exact same thing the second day. So it's 6 hours of me doing a brain dump, and it's 4 hours of roundtables, which is 20 hours total. 5 different roundtables with subject matter experts at each one. and then it's 4 hours of 16 hot seats.
Right. Well, I like the intimacy of it too, like the size and then the ability to interact. And it's not just sitting there listening to somebody talk the whole time, but it's that interaction. It's the hot seat, the round tables. And I mean, when you fill it up with not just yourself, but other smart people, magic can happen. And that's what.
Well, and I make myself available. There's no one in this mastermind who could hire me as a consultant. That's not why I do this.
Right.
But I make myself available to them in between so that if they have a question or a stumbling block, that's my obligation to them. And I say, just call me. Don't call me every day, but call me when you have a need. And I spend time on the phone and work it out with them and solve the problems for them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I encourage everybody to check out. There'll be a link in the show notes to the marketingmasterygroup.com. And if you guys are listening right now, because I'm going to get this out right away. Should be able to get this out even this week, David. But if not, you do these multiple times. So if somebody's listening to this a month from now and this April date is passed, they still have the ability to go and apply for one of the next ones. So that's fantastic.
The next one is July. I don't have the dates. End of July.
Right. David, are there any nuts in your business you're trying to crack right now? And, by that, I mean, obviously trying to get some, good people to the marketing mastery group is one thing, but is there anything you're working on right now that you're either particularly looking for a resource, a skill set, a person?
Oh my God. I can't believe you're asking this. Yes. I am always looking for good project managers. They're so hard to find.
Really
if I could find 10, I'd hire 10 people who think outside the box, people who question, I want someone who doesn't take for an answer. And so, I'm always looking for that. I'm actually looking for a new executive assistant. My person who was with me 12 and a half years, working from home, left after 12 and a half years. For personal reasons.
I have got a really good recommendation for you on that. He lives in Austin, and he's not the executive assistant, but his name is Tim Francis. He's a former guest on the show. He's a good friend and an amazing human being. I don't know if you've ever come across Tim, but
no.
He owns a company called greatassistant.com, and he is methodical about recruiting, training, personality profiling, everything, the best executive assistants for people.
Wow.
And he is top notch. I'm happy to make an introduction, but if you are looking for an executive assistant, especially
I really am. Yeah.
US based.
Absolutely. Everything I do is virtual all around the world.
Yeah. That's the only way to go.
All my people are virtual. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for almost 20 years, and 20 years ago it was not that easy. Now technology has caught up with it. It's really easy. But, then you're not restricted to the talent pool within a 20-mile radius of your location. So you can use some of the better people. And going offshore for certain things makes a big difference. I've got programmers offshore. I've got, data people offshore. It's really, the world is a wide open place.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny. I just was speaking about project managers, because that's one of the things I always say as well. I think we're cut from the same cloth in a lot of areas. But just yesterday, this episode has not even been edited yet, but I was interviewing the owner of the company FreeUp, and it's FREEE, 3 E's, up.com. And it's a new platform it's about 3 years old, for outsourcing global workers. Both U.S. based, about half of them are U.S., but they take an extra step so that if you go to Upwork or one of these other sites and you post a job posting, you're going to get inundated with 50 different applicants. Well, in this case, they're actively recruiting for their people. And if you post, I need a web designer, they're only going to deliver you maybe 1 to 3, potentially 1 to 3 people that they've already pre-vetted, pre-interviewed, et cetera, in order to streamline the process.
That's great.
And in addition, regarding project managers, I told him, they do have PMs there, but I said a great service that you guys could offer would be some of the people who create, who build themselves out as project managers. I would work deeper with them and create an integration with them in your business, so that if I've got an e-com project to do and it's going to require 5 different skill sets, if you let me know that, well, yeah, we also have one of these project managers on board who knows our system and our people real well, you can hire them to work in our system, and just one extra layer of easiness for the client,
Sure.
which would be us. So I was having that convo yesterday, but
You know, I'm a big fan of training. You know, for example, in Touch CR, our team are all going for the Salesforce certifications, and you know, Richard Branson said something I think is brilliant. I have such respect for some of the things he's done. He said, trains people so that they can leave you and get a better job somewhere else.
Yeah.
Treat them so that they never want to.
Right. Or train people so that they can find somebody to replace themselves at your business and move up.
Well,
like that's
it depends. You know, you never want to make your best salesperson a sales manager. Then you sit there and go, oh, we have no more sales. What happened?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so it depends on what position. But, you know, I love that because I'm a big fan of training, and I train our people in all different areas and cross-train. And show them perspectives. I've owned a lot of businesses. I remember one time I had a business that had a warehouse, printing shop and warehouse and shipping. And I had all the desk jockeys, if you will, the accounting people, the customer service people, go out and work the warehouse and work the print shop. I mean, not the presses, but, you know, the whole idea. And it gave them a whole different perspective. I mean, this was years and years and years ago before it became in vogue. And it worked. I'm going to share one more idea, if I may, that's near and dear to me. Hire the handicapped. If you have some things that are, you know, like customer service people who work from home, there are people who are physically disabled and looking for work, and they want so much to please, to work, to be valuable.
It's a great point. The level of appreciation there is probably through the roof.
Well, and not just appreciation, but dedication and hard work, because they want to be productive. They want to be useful. I had a warehouse in question, and at the time, this was 20 years ago plus in LA. It was a pick and pack. I mean, we'd pack things and ship them, and I hired a ton of people in wheelchairs and put up the ramps and everything. And, you know, they said, well, one person said, you know, you treat us just like any others. I said, so you're subject to my joke abuse like everyone else, you know, and at 4:00 I'd come out to sort of tell jokes and they'd all be hiding, you know, go back to work, leave us, we're busy. But, you know, it was so gratifying to be able to do that. So anyway, whenever I can put a plug in for that, I do.
And I think that's powerful. Well, David, I can't thank you enough for your time today.
Go on, try. Go on. You can try. Go.
The insight, the wisdom, the ideas, and just the transparency has been, you know, just phenomenal. And I get a lot of great guests on the show, but I'm especially thankful for getting people who have played and are playing at the levels that you are, and thinking in a way that it takes a lifetime to kind of really create you know, these viewpoints and perspectives that you can bring to any business owner, entrepreneur, consultant, anybody out there. For my listeners, once more, this is in the show notes, but I highly encourage you to go to themarketingmasterygroup.com and look at this, but only if you feel as though that there is some stuff that you could really learn and grow from as both a person and an entrepreneur, and using some of the insights that David obviously has, as he shared in this amazing episode, where I call it an episizzle because it's sizzling hot. What? There's the laughter. But David, once more, thank you very much to all my subscribers. At any point that you have a question for me, you want to reach out, send an email to askbrad@baconwrappedbusiness.com. And I'm more than happy to hear you out. And if it's something that you'd like a second opinion on, whether it's a strategy you're pursuing, an issue you're having in your business, trying to figure something out, and you're just kind of at a crossroads and you don't know where to go, shoot me an email. If it's good enough, maybe we'll even have it on the show. But David, is there anything else you'd like to add? If people would like to get a hold of you, I mean, you are a ghost, so I'm not going to ask for like.
Yeah, you know, maybe I should have a domain, you know, David@casper.com or something. I don't know. if anybody wants to reach out, they can get me on the Marketing Mastery
Perfect.
site, and they can send an email or fill out an app. And glad to respond to anyone who has a question. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Well, it was my pleasure. I look forward to sharing this. And guys, if you're listening to this too, and you think other people need to hear about it, the single best thing in the world you could do is share this episode on your social profiles and tag me in it. Don't tag the ghost. You can't find him. But there's nothing, that we love more is than just letting us know that these episodes had a big impact on you. So without any further ado, David, thanks again for being on the show. I look forward to talking to you again real soon. And to all my listeners, thanks for tuning in and spending the time with us. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.